Hey guys, Chris Everett with the Gap Toledo. Thanks for joining us for another installment of Saturday Stories, where we talk about a particular event that's happened in the past, where we were able to be of assistance to someone who was stuck in the gap. So for this installment of Saturday Stories, we're going to be talking about a gentleman that we'll call Kenny. I had met Kenny while I was working at a treatment center here in the city. Met him probably a year and a half ago, something like that, and I kind of watched, his progress as he started in, as he came in off the street, and all the way to finishing the program, clean and sober, having a job, and getting his own apartment, which is right here. This is the actual apartment where this happened, the stairwell to the apartment. So I kept in contact, as I do, with a lot of the people who go through treatment. One, because they become friends, but two, it's not always a first try type of deal. It takes people time. Kenny was working, and he was calling pretty often. That tapered out. I could tell that he was isolating. Probably around Christmas times, I started to get calls from Kenny where he would keep me on the phone as long as I would let him, and he had obviously been drinking, I stuck around to be supportive, because that's what we do to our friends, right? All the while telling them, like, hey, do you think this is a good idea? Do you know where this goes? All that stuff. Around that time, the call started for money and food. He said he didn't have food. And I would start to bring him boxes of meat, milk, cheese, you name it. I remember it was about a week before the event I'm talking about happened. I brought him over a box of food and set it right on his living room floor. Didn't think a lot about it. Got a call about a week later, and it didn't make any sense. He was completely discombobulated. He just kept saying the word shoot. When it wasn't shoot, you can imagine what it was. But he was pretty much unable to say anything else. I called a landlord friend who just happens to own this building. Great guy, and he met me over here. We weren't prepared for what we saw when we came in. We came up these stairs and we knocked, and there was no answer. And we just so happened to be able to push the door open. Kenny was sitting in a computer chair covered in his own excrement, his own vomit, the filth. One thing I distinctly remember is the smell, and it was just god-awful. You can imagine. There was excrement everywhere. There was vomit everywhere. The food that I had brought a week prior was still laying in the same spot. One thing I remember too distinctly is that the pots that he would have had to have cooked the food in that hadn't been touched were full of cigarette butts. We kind of had to fib Kenny a little bit. Bringing the landlord, we told him that he had two choices, that he could go to treatment or he would have to leave the premises. He hadn't paid rent, so I was using the fact that his landlord was present, to try to save him in this case. We ended up having to call the paramedics. He was in really bad shape. We weren't sure if he had a stroke or what was going on, but he couldn't move and he couldn't stand to his feet. God bless my friend. At one point, he's like, "You're going," and he tried to put on Kenny's shoes and actually ended up vomiting and had to leave. I'm smiling about it now. It's not that funny, but it kind of is now. The paramedics came. They were great, but they said they could not take him unless he said he was going to hurt himself. Which he wouldn't say, and I don't think he was capable of saying. They did say that they would help us get him down the stairs if we could convince him, which we eventually did, which with the language barrier, that was very difficult. He ended up communicating that, we could take him somewhere. So the paramedics brought not a gurney, but like a human dolly. It was like a chair with little wheels on it, and we ended up having to strap Kenny into it. This was tough. He couldn't stand up. He couldn't do anything by himself, and he was fighting us the entire time, screaming, all the while covered in his own filth. having to deal with the smell, all that stuff. And it took us a while to get him down these stairs here. I think there was 4 of us, and with a grown man covered in excrement, that was quite a chore. And he was not cooperative. We ended up loading him into the van and taking him to a local hospital. I actually had to go into the ER and grab nurses to get assistance for us to get him out of the van. Again, covered in all those bodily fluids, it was a mess. And he was very fragile. He hadn't ate in what I would surmise would probably be a week. It was sad. It was sad, but at the same time, it's the type of thing that makes you grateful for where you are and what you're able to do for people. I'll never forget that. Kenny's doing good today. He's doing very good. He's actually back in treatment where he's been for, I'd say, the past 8 or so months, and he's getting ready to finish up. And, just very blessed to see another day, because so many don't. It's just another example of why what we do out here is so important. Not saying that I'm important or I'm special or anything I'm doing is exceptional. It's necessary. This is necessary. These are your friends and your neighbors. And how we treat each other is just very, very important. That's why I'm so thrilled to do what we do at the Gap Toledo. Sometimes that means going in to places that you wouldn't normally want to go into, and extracting an unwilling participant out. They got to be somewhat willing, but you know what I mean. The Gap is so much more than making people aware of what's going on out there. It's actual boots on the ground mission. And I'm really excited about the things that are coming up in the coming weeks. That mean major implications for this city, and I'm so thrilled to be able to share them with you. So, thank you for coming out to Saturday Stories, the Gap Toledo. I'm Chris.